Okay, so this is the second video on the tutorial about getting a person moving around and spawning what in this case is a bullet. Now the most important thing in this is the script, because you've got a lot here, but if you don't have a script, nothing's going to move, nothing's going to appear. This script here, if I want to edit it, I can double click on it and it's going to open something called mono develop. So there we go, it opens up mono develop. Obviously I can see what the code is here if I need to, but right now I want to go into the edit part. So what do the lines do? C# is a programming language that is used for lots of things, not just Unity. So we need to tell it to use the Unity engine. That's what that first line means. Then we've got a public class. Now this is used throughout Blender. You can only have, these need to be unique. So you can only have one called player controller single player bullet. Unlikely you have another code called that. And mono behavior, that is not actually to do with mono develop as such. That is to do with single player and not networked, so multiplayer. And then we've got these three lines here. Public game object bullet prefab. Now this is declaring a, well, let's show you in Unity. So what happens is if I look in here, at the top it's got bullet prefab and bullet spawn. Now what it means by this is the bullet prefab is going to be a bullet that we create in here that's going to keep being created, and bullet spawn is the position that it gets created from, which is why we created that empty game object. So the game object bullet prefab, it needs to be an object, so that's why we've called it game object. We've called it public, so it shows up in Unity in one of those boxes, and bullet prefab, so we actually know what it means, and later on we use the code, we can refer to it. Public transform. Now transform is a position in 3D space, the X, Y and Z. So if we go back to, say, our person, its transform, position, rotation and scale, that's its transform, it's its position. So we're creating a variable that is going to take into account a position in 3D space. Finally, we're doing one more variable, public integer, so this is a number, and called bullet speed equals 1. So when you actually get to the third video, you'll see the bullet is going to move at quite a slow speed. This is a multiplier, so 1 is basic speed. If we put 2, it would go double as fast, 4 times as fast. And that's that. So void update. Void update means that it's going to run this function every single frame of the game. It's an inbuilt function to Unity, and it will just keep running it. Void is a way of creating a function. We're not going to go into the different types of functions, but it creates a function. And then we've got float x. This is another variable. Up the top we did public variable, so it could be seen outside of the coding and actually properly in the Unity editor. But if we don't put public in front, so we've just got float x, it's not going to put it there, but it's still going to be a variable, and it's going to be a float variable, which means it's going to have a decimal point, so it'll be 0.0. So x is going to be for horizontal movement. So input get axis horizontal, which is left and right on the keyboard, that's what that means, times delta time, that is just, you hold the mouse over it for a while, the time in seconds it took to complete the last frame. So that's pretty much the speed of the game. So you multiply it by that, multiply it by 150. Don't worry about what these numbers mean as such, but this is how quick it rotates, which we're going to look at in a minute. And then float z, which is vertical, and times 3. So this is moving forwards and backwards. And if we look at this line, transform.rotate 0x0. So what it's talking about is it's rotating on the middle axis, which is the one that goes straight up and down. So it's rotating like a spinning top based on this variable up here. So if you press left or right, it's going to change this variable here, this x, and then it's going to rotate, so the transform rotate the middle one here. And to show you that, so that's the middle one, that is the Y one. So it's going to change this bit here. If I was to change this, you got to change the number, it rotates the whole caption and everything inside it, the whole player. So that's what that is doing, based on you pressing left and right. With the other one, transform.translate 00Z, that is the third one. So if we go back to Unity and we change the position Z, you see it moves backwards and forwards depending which way it's facing. If I was to rotate the way it's facing, it would go actually, sorry, the local Z for it. So it goes backwards and forwards. That is pretty much what it is doing. So let's go back to the code. This code here, if input get key down, key code space, what that's saying is if the space bar gets pressed down, fire. Now that means you have to press space every time you want it to fire. Don't do the fire yet because it's going to break the game. It'll say, well, we don't have anything called fire, it won't work, or it doesn't have these bits. But that will make it every time you press space. If you were to have deleted the word down there, get key space, it would look like a machine gun. It would go da, 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 lots of bullets one after another, because it would run this function down here lots of times. And that's what this means. Fire, open and close brackets, means run a function. So as I said, update is a function. It's an inbuilt function that runs every single frame. This is running the function only when you press the space key. And that function is just under here. And it's called void fire. The little comment in here, create the bullet from the bullet prefab. So variable bullet, it's creating a variable called bullet, and it is that variable called bullet is creating a new game object. We're going to get into what prefabs are when we get to the third video, but it's creating a new object in the game. So you're going to create a new thing up here, and it's going to be made from our bullet prefab that we haven't made yet. And so yeah, bullet prefab, it's saying that's the game object. Bullet spawn.position, so it's going to, its position to start with is going to be where, well, it's called game object here. We're going to need to change the name of that in the third video. And its rotation is rotated in the same way as this game object as well. So it's going to start there, it's going to point in the same direction. That's what this code here says. Then add velocity to the bullet. So the rigid body is the thing that creates physics into it, but we're going to get the rigid body component, so all the physics part, and set the velocity, so the speed of the bullet. And it's going to move forward times 6, then times the bullet speed. So initially the code said times 6, it would go the same way. We've added an extra variable in here, this one up here, that we can change so the bullet goes faster or slower. And then finally, we've got a destroy code. And the destroy is, what do you want destroyed? Well, the variable bullet. And how long? 2 seconds. Okay, so 2.0f, which is a 2-second float. And that's what the code is. You'll notice that each of these brackets connect up to other ones. So this one is a pair with that one. This void is a pair with this one. This whole class has got brackets either side of it. Now, this isn't obviously a lesson on how to do C# coding, but it's a lesson on what all these codes mean. So if you do want to go in and start modifying the code, this is how you get there. And that's the video.